Good day and welcome to the News 24 studio down in Cape Town. Today we welcome the AA Chief Executive Officer Bobby Ramagwede to talk to us about the latest Safer for Africa campaign crash test results from the Global NCAP. It's revealed that the Toyota Corolla Cross has received a 2-star rating for adult occupant protection due to the absence of standard side head protection. Bobby, let's take it a step back. Welcome, first of all.
Thank you.
Welcome to our studio, and I'm glad the weather is good today. But let's take it a step back. Please elaborate on what the Global NCAP testing is really about. And then also, how long has it been around? And what does the organization do? Where are tests conducted? And just a full background on this testing benchmark. Could you please explain?
Sure. Let me give it a local spin first. I'll start with Safer Cars for Africa, then I'll roll you back up to Global NCAP and bring you right back to South Africa. Safer Cars for Africa is an initiative that is run by the AA as well as Global NCAP and is funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies and also partnered by the FIA. This program is set out to ensure that the safety standards that are applied to vehicles on the African continent mirror those of their European counterparts. Now, this is off the back of us realizing that there are a number of vehicles that enter into our market that are less safe than the vehicles in, let's say, Europe, for instance. Let's go back to Global NCAP.
Right.
In fact, NCAP itself,
Yes.
New Car Assessment Program. So the name says it all. A new vehicle is proposed to enter a market. It is then tested against a series of tests, and these are all safety-related tests. These tests are graded on a 5-star scale, 0 being an absolute fail, 5 being a really good pass, and that sets the benchmark for international safety. Global NCAP has a span across the world, and then you've got NCAPs scattered across the world as well. Very popular one is Euro NCAP.
Yes.
It's arguably the most stringent of them all. But if you want some comfort, once your car has been NCAP tested, ideally global or your regional, then you know you have a vehicle that's been put through decent paces, and the star rating will give you a good indication of how safe your vehicle is.
Mm-hmm. So that basically sets the bar for the rest of them. So what then is the difference between the Euro, China, and the Africa testing, more specifically the Safer Cars for Africa?
Okay. So Safer Cars for Africa uses the Global NCAP battery of tests. Right. Euro NCAP is similar to, I'm going to call it GNCAP from now on. It's similar to GNCAP, it's just got a few more tests to it as well. What informs the difference between Global NCAP and Euro NCAP is that the Euro NCAP has a few legislative requirements. So in Europe, fortunately for them, a vehicle needs to pass through a far more rigorous test in order to be deemed safe. But globally, those standards aren't exactly the same. So it gives rise to Global NCAP, who sets a minimum set of standards that need to be passed in order for a vehicle to be deemed safe. So both the Euro NCAP vehicle and the GNCAP vehicle are safe.
Right. Okay. So then let's talk about the Toyota. And more specifically, what were the shortcomings found by the committee which resulted in the 2-star rating? I mean, the Toyota is a very popular car here, the Corolla Cross, and it's locally built. So it's very interesting to find how the shortcomings came about.
Yeah, so what you tend to find is when vehicles are set for various markets, these vehicles are built at times in order to honor the requirements of the various markets, legislative requirements. I just intimated that Europe's got a bar set all the way up here. Our bar, unfortunately, is set all the way down here. So it's not to say that the OEs use the legal requirement as their entry point, but in tooling and kitting for vehicles, if the floor is very low, then the resultant safety level can be slightly lower. In the case of the Corolla Cross, what was identified was that the car is missing what we call curtain airbags. This is the head protection. So in the event of a side collision, your head is exposed to to potential risk and damage.
Right. So the Corolla Cross is built locally, as I mentioned, in KwaZulu-Natal. Does this fact make it easier for Toyota to come up with a quick fix? And what are the constraints with implementing fixes? Does it depend on the magnitude of the fix?
Often depends on the magnitude. It can be easy, it can be difficult. I often say to people, cars are not Lego pieces, so you can't just take a module and slot it in. Now, depending on how the vehicle was designed, it may be something that can easily be retrofitted, or what could potentially happen is the assembly line gets retooled to a certain extent and allows for a run of vehicles from a certain date going forward to have that safety feature. So it really depends on the DNA of the vehicle, whether the fix is something that can be done quite easily or quite quickly, or if it's going to require some sort of reimagination of that safety requirement of the vehicle, and that the future line of the vehicle has that safety feature.
Okay, so some automakers, or OEMs like we call them, they may argue that the cost inhibits these safety parameters. So what are your thoughts on where the lines lie with responsible vehicle manufacturing?
I will throw that back to the OEM and ask, what's the cost of a life?
Yeah.
1 car, 2 car, 3 cars? Once you look at it through that lens, you quickly realize that, and I often say to people, these aren't kettles and toasters. If they go faulty, it's okay, I'll replace it. When things go wrong with a car, it's either life-changing or life-ending. So a harder line needs to be drawn for the manufacturer when it comes to safety. I'm okay with them changing luxury features, but I think the minimum standard should be safety first and then luxury next. Yeah.
Tell me, do manufacturers know about these results beforehand, or when do they find out about the results? Are they as surprised as what we are when we find out what the results are? Or do they know beforehand at all?
Generally, when we test vehicles, we do reach out to the lead, or rather the HQ of a manufacturer. So in this case, it would have been Toyota in Japan, who we'd invite to the actual test to observe the testing protocol, make sure that everything's above board. Always is, but it's great to have the OE there. Yeah. Whether that information cascades to their regional representation is, I suppose that's what we really ask. So when OEs are surprised by the results, one could, I suppose, comfortably assume that the information hasn't completely flowed across the organization.
Yeah, because you would almost seem that it's odd that they don't implement some measures to counter things beforehand. But the big question we normally get is, where does the line lie with the government? Surely our governance institutions should be more insistent on these ratings when cars come to South Africa.
100%. And I like to use Euro NCAP's relationship with the European governments as an example. The government set the standard, NCAP followed. In this particular instance, NCAP is setting the standard and we're waiting for the government to catch up. Right. Today, our homologation standards are years behind the curve. Yeah. There's a great opportunity for our government to raise the standard and at least meet GNCAP at a minimum, allowing for all vehicles entering the market. And keep in mind that we've got an influx of vehicles coming from a wide variety of markets that have not been assessed through an NCAP program and quite comfortably pass the minimum requirements to be sold in this country. Yeah. There's a big gap between minimum requirements, the legal requirement, and the Global NCAP standard.
Yeah. Speaking about that, we've had a lot of feedback. And obviously the Hyundai Grand i10 has been in the news for all the wrong reasons with its zero safety rating. Do you have anything you would like to add about that, and perhaps some advice for Grand i10 owners?
Yeah, so it's a touchy one, because I feel for those who bought the vehicle before they saw the results. And in an ideal world, we'd have an Africa NCAP, we would have tested the vehicle long before it hit the dealership floors, and people could assess what their risk appetite for the safety level of the vehicle is. So for those who own the vehicle already, I think the best bet is to find a way, again, to the extent that it is economically possible, to trade out of that vehicle and get themselves into a safer vehicle. The point is, put yourself into a safer car as a priority. Yeah. For those considering the vehicle, it scored 0 out of 5. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer over there. I must remind you that we're the AA. We bring these things to your attention to make it possible for you to make complete information symmetrical decisions. Once a car scores a 0 out of 5 rating on Global NCAP, I think it's safe to say that you should be considering a different vehicle.
Yeah. I think in the past, though, people didn't really care. They would know that safety ratings are lower, but they still wouldn't care. And it's going to be interesting to see what Hyundai sales are like going forward. But do you think that consumers' perspectives have changed in recent times and that they do care more about safety?
I think they are evolving. We have played a greater role in educating the consumer about safety, broadly speaking. And the rate at which that's growing suggests to me that people are looking at safety features before fuel economy. For many years, the first consideration was cost, then fuel economy, and then we'd look at maybe infotainment. Right. Today, the trend is now safety, fuel economy, and cost combined. Going forward, I'd like for the African consumer at large to start with safety first. Yeah. This guarantees you the peace of mind that if you're in a collision, whether caused by yourself or someone else, you make it. Yeah. No aircon is going to save you in that particular instance. You'd rather be in a safe vehicle.
Absolutely. But thank you so much, Bobby. Thank you for taking the time to come to visit us in our studio today at News 24. And I'm pretty sure we'll be having many more conversations.
I look forward to them. Thank you.